Hello, this is Amber Mirza with Conscious Business Talks, and I am happy to welcome you to today's show. I'm actually just looking to see if everybody can hear me. So if you can hear me, please just post a comment and let me know all is well, and we can continue. Awesome. So one of the things that I truly I'm looking forward to is if Zishan is on the show, it would make me super happy, just because part of this was inspired by a conversation with her. So we were having a talk, it's socialism and communism and capitalism. They have incited such emotion and debate over time about the merits of each, what each of them brings as pros and cons, and how it contributes to society and human well-being, period. So I'm not I'm sure that you're no stranger to hearing people get really emotional even about this. It's not just an economic system to operate, how we conduct business and how the economy works, what are the systems that are being utilized. It actually becomes very emotional and personal as to what somebody is aligning themselves with, and which countries, or even individuals within the countries, what their stance is about this. So, hey Few, it's really great to see you. Awesome. So I'm glad that you guys can see me, and I'm not just talking to myself, which is always a possibility. Anyway, so the conversation really was around about economics, and I've always looked at economics just literally as being unbiased, right? This is literally how the mechanism of supply and demand, how it works, how really in the system, how it determines what the individuals within that system are doing, what, especially in a free enterprise, how the price is being affected, and how it can also affect other things when that when that free enterprise is pressurized or affected. Anyway, so she was looking into economics, and she says, well, I'm looking at a more liberal form of economics. And that really got my wheels turning. I'm thinking, a liberal form of economics. Okay, that's an interesting way to look at it, because I had never quite associated that to be anything except just a explanation and a description of something that we utilize as a system, right? And sorry, as a science, as a science of how the economy operates in a free enterprise system. And maybe it was just the blinder that I had on, because yes, it can be liberal or not, depending on how it's being utilized. But I had always looked at it as a more scientific kind of thing, as opposed to either this way or that way. Well, just my personal blinder and my personal perception and view of the world. And anyway, that sparked a curiosity in me to kind of think about, okay, well then, if we are thinking about that as literally a way, whether it can be liberal or not, what does that actually say about capitalism in itself, right? And if I'm talking about businesses that are more aware and awake, and I'm talking about leadership that is more dialed in and evolving, stepping up to a higher level of service, what does it actually say about businesses' ability to serve up and affect capitalism in itself, because let's be frank, capitalism has got its bad share of its share of bad rep over the last while, and not necessarily undeservedly, because there have been thought leaders and ways of thinking that talk about, what is the responsibility of business? What is the responsibility, even social responsibility, of the management group, the executives of that business who are running that? What responsibility do they have? Is it to, as I believe, to to numerous stakeholders, or as was the popular belief popularized by Milton Friedman's work, and he's a Nobel Prize winner. I think he's done marvelous work, but he was of the opinion that the only responsibility business has is to its shareholders, and anything else is just sort of like social whatever, but it's not the responsibility of business. You're being irresponsible if you are ignoring what's happening to the quote unquote profitability. And when I say quote unquote profitability, keep in mind, I am all for ethical profitability, right? I'm all for the rights. And in fact, the duty of business to make profit so it can step up to a higher way of serving, right? And I know you also have thoughts about this, about how businesses affect people's well-being. So I would love to hear what you're thinking. But it's literally, when I was thinking about that, I'm like, okay, but when you think about profitability, business profitability in that way, just by definition, just by the focus itself, your attention then becomes only on short-term profitability, right? Short-term profitability as reflected in the share price, short-term, of that organization, right? And the problem with short-term anything is that businesses, as I mentioned in one of the previous episodes, businesses they're not really able to sustain a long-term thriving ability if the attention is only on short-term decision making about profitability in the short term, right? So when I was thinking about it, I'm like, okay, wait, that doesn't jive in my head. If the business is only thinking about short-term focus type of decision making, its long-term sustainability, its relationship with its stakeholders, all of that is going to suffer, right? And when that suffers, its long-term profitability is at stake, its reputation, its brand, awareness as to what people associate with it. And frankly, in the long term, its very ability to survive is in danger. And I'm going to take a look, because I think Few just mentioned something and I want to take a look. Few says, this is really interesting, Amber. The various economic systems and how they operate globally. Oh, profits before people. The ideal should be people before profits. You know what? It's. I'm so glad to see this shift happening. Right? It was when businesses only think about profits and they don't think about people. I don't think that type of a relationship, and it's always a relationship where people are involved, can survive, right? So is it profits before people, or people before profits, or is it truly people coming together to work towards the profitability of the organization whose mission they truly believe in, right? To me, it's like the most beautiful collaboration. And there is always this kind of balance that you're maintaining, because you're always looking into what's really happening within that organization are the people that are stakeholders in that organization, people whose lives are intersecting with that organization. Are they truly still invested, or are you starting to see gaps, within what the people's mission is and what the organization's mission is? Until that alignment comes together in that focal point, how is that business going to be profitable in the long term? I don't know, because in my mind, it just doesn't work. So though I really admire Friedman's work and he has contributed so much, I absolutely disagree that the only responsibility of business is to the shareholders of the company. And in fact, I have a broader definition of shareholders of the company. And I'll come to that. I just want to greet Vicky and MJ, who have also joined. I'm so happy you guys are here. And Vicky says, planet and people before profits. You and few are absolutely right. You can't leave people out of that equation. If you're only focused on the short-term profitability as evidenced by the short-term share price, you don't think about people. You actually think of them as extraneous to that, as external to that. And they're not. It's the people who are working within that organization, and people who are outside of that organization, but doing some sort of an exchange with that organization, either as customers, either as suppliers and vendors, or as people who are ambassadors. Like, it doesn't, there are so many roles people can take on when it comes to a business entity. So even when I'm hearing people talk about business to business, type of businesses, and they say, oh, we're not B2C, we're B2B. I'm always like, yeah, but what's behind the business? It's always people. So you can't leave people out of that equation, right? So this whole conversation about, a more liberal economics course is kind of sparked my curiosity, because, as I said, I hadn't quite thought about economics as being liberal or not, right? I just thought of economics as economics. Here is something that literally explains this is, supply and demand. How is it working in a free enterprise? And this is how the system operates, right? And I was like, okay, cool. I have to think about it. And that led me to kind of thinking about, can capitalism be conscious then? And can businesses making day-to-day decisions with a long-term outlook contribute to the long-term profitability of that organization? Definitely. But can they also then contribute to the evidence of capitalism? And as Bill George, another really awesome guy, he was the CEO of Medtronic, I think, and he's written like several books that are really great on the subject of leadership and purposeful business and so on, right? But as he was even talking, like, I think he referred to it as the actual authentic form of capitalism, right? What does capitalism look like when it hasn't gone off the rails with a short-term focus? That, in fact, if we look at not that long ago, in 2008, we had so many financial businesses that were gone because of their focus on that short-term profitability, and the share price chasing, right? Which led to decisions that were not actually either conscious or authentic, and they led to the destruction of their reputation, as well as actually the very organization, like Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers. Oh my gosh, even other organizations that took huge hits, like the Citigroup, huge hits indeed. And what I also wanted to, bear with me, I'm just going to have a quick look at the comments just so I don't miss anybody. And let's see. Okay, I also wanted to. Okay, so no dead air here. Matt says, is the economy the tool or are people the tool? Only one of them can be the tool. We, the people, have a decision to make. Actually, that is a huge thought, Matt, in itself, because it's like I always consider money as the tool, money as the vehicle, right? And the economy as the system that allows the utilization and leveraging of different tools, including money, to provide for the best lives of the people within it, right? And as people, we do have a decision to make whether we are going to show up in our different work environments, whether we are employees in a company or we're running businesses of our own, or a form that is a hybrid of both, right? But we do have a decision to make, that are we going to show up there in our absolute, full, glorious, energized way of being, looking to see which organization and work is the right fit for us, or are we just going to show up day to day in a really listless, drab sort of existence where we show up because the paycheck is there but the passion is not, right? So I think that to me is the decision that we have to make. And Vicky says, capitalism without greed is a fabulous tool. I do agree. And it's funny because whenever I hear, thoughts about socialism, communism, capitalism, I almost sort of step back because I can see the pros and cons of each different types of system, limitations of each, good points of each, but also how do they operate in the greater capacity, and how do they contribute to the well-being of living beings, right, within those systems. Do they work on a larger scale for a longer period of time? Yes, it definitely, they're all there and can be exposed to exploitation, manipulation, and corruption. But where does it give the highest opportunity for not just human beings, but living beings to thrive, right? And this is where I'm like, when I talk to friends of mine who have lived in socialist countries, again, it may offend some people to hear this, but the common theme that I'm hearing is, well, anybody who is, asking for that has not lived in a socialist or a communist country. And that, when I first heard it, it blew my mind, because I tried to take a more scientific approach to things and kind of look to say, okay, so tell me, what is it like? Because I truly want to know the merits of something as it can be, right? And how we can actually take the best of something and use it to help something thrive or somebody thrive. And when I heard that, it really took me back, because I was like, wow, okay. So I truly believe that when you really want to know what something is like, ask of the people who are living in it, right? So when I'm hearing people share that, and I'm hearing that freedom to express yourself, which to me is such a core tenet of how I like to operate, the freedom to choose, the freedom to be myself, the freedom to go for my very best life, the freedom to be creative, the freedom to just decide, how am I going to show up in this world, and am I living in my purpose? If I don't have the ability to do that, if I don't have the choice to do that, to me, that's such a sad repression of just this glorious thing that is human life, right? Because as human beings, I think we have a huge responsibility towards all life. And if we don't have the ability to be empowered and being able to live our lives fully, being able to express what we feel is a core connection inside of ourselves being expressed outwardly, then how could we possibly then show up for other beings that are alive, right? So anyway, that's just my 2 cents, but I truly believe that. And oh my gosh, Vicky, you are so right. We have enough wealth now to eradicate poverty. And oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said that, because it's not only true, it makes me sad sometimes that when I see the focus on things that sort of hide that, so that the attention is not on it, right? Because it allows us to pursue something or hoard something that truly can shift the mindset. Because I don't necessarily believe that everybody should be just given everything, right? I, however, fully believe that everybody should have the opportunity to live their best life, the possibility open to them of stepping into that that calling that they feel, if they allow themselves to feel it, right? So if that's the case, then to me, everything starts with a shifting of the mindset and opening up of opportunities, shifting people to kind of to let them start to believe that there is a better way to show up for whatever vocation you want to pursue. And there isn't shame in different types of vocation. That is truly like, okay, so I was this kid who my dad would watch Star Trek and Star Wars and all these different sci-fi, movies and shows and all. And I thought the Star Trek, system was so cool, because there wasn't really any pressure on anybody to do whatever. You literally showed up and you did the things that you were best, attracted to or interested in or wanted to pursue. So anyway, I thought that was one of the coolest things about that show, that you literally could do whatever you wanted to. There wasn't like, oh, and I've grown up in different parts of the world, right? So in such a huge focus, especially in the Asian countries and even in Europe, really. But I know that my Oriental friends would absolutely agree with me, and my Asian friends, they will tell you that there are only a few choice professions that were acceptable for the kids to go to, and if you couldn't make it, then you could go into others. But it wasn't quite, you didn't quite make it, right? Such a huge pressure to be within those defined roles, because those were the acceptable ones, right? And imagine taking the shame away from whether you made it or not. If you want to be an artist, there's nothing wrong with you being an artist versus, I don't know, like a brain surgeon or a rocket scientist or whatever, right? The professions that technically are considered, you must be so smart if you're doing that. Well, imagine a world without somebody expressing themselves through their art or music or whatever, right? But it was like, oh no, go and study science and math. Don't necessarily worry so much about the arts. Who cares how well you did there? And in fact, I remember my mom telling me a story. One of my uncles, her younger brothers, give me 1 second, please. My throat was getting a bit parched. And in case you guys are wondering, today is dark tea. I didn't have time to make coffee, Vicky. But yeah, my mom told me this story. One of her brothers was just naturally gifted at drawing, right? He could draw anything, no lessons, nothing. He literally could sit in front of you and draw you, or he could, draw a bird. He was really great at, the colors and just making everything look amazing. And this is without any training, right? And yet her dad, my grandfather, thought he was wasting his time because he was spending time with these pictures and not pursuing whatever vocation, he thought he should be pursuing. And we have definitely come a long way since then, but I do know that in different cultures and different societies that is still very much a thing. But anyway, so for me, it's literally the role of society, the role of our social, our economic systems the role of our economy is really to provide the opportunities for human beings to live their best lives, right? And how we define somebody's best life, like how could I possibly define what your best life is, right? If you come up to me and you're like, hey, can you tell me what my best life is? Or Vicky tomorrow says, I'm not quite sure what my best life is, maybe Amber can tell me. I have no idea, because that is something, like, as you guys know, you've lived it. It is so much, so deeply personal. It's so deeply unique, like those snowflakes we talked about, right? What is your best life? What feels good right here? What lets you know you're showing up just as you were meant to? Okay, so I totally got down that rabbit hole. Let me see what else I missed. And let's see. Few says, the projects of eradicating poverty is driven by community, and I'm so happy to see some of the progress happening in some communities in the Pacific Islands. Makes my heart happy, for sure, because whenever you start to look at it and you start to see the change in people, it's like opening up windows and doors, right? And showing people the possibility of what could be when you step through, right? But it starts with a mindset change. I don't know how often I've heard people say, oh, I cannot do that because this happened in my past. I cannot do that because you don't know all the stuff I've gone through. And I'm like, I acknowledge and empathize and sympathize, depending on what the situation is, with whatever you may have gone through. But what are you going towards? Do you want to drag everything that is determined to keep you right here, thinking about all the stuff back there? Or are you ready to look at the possibility of what could be when you look at it, accept it, acknowledge it, and maybe even consider that it may be a gift that sets you up to be exactly who you are now, ready to embrace what waits you just a little ways away, right? Anyway, that's my weird way of thinking, but that's literally how I tend to think about it. And basic human rights and conditions: education, food, clean water, safe living conditions. Oh my God, I'm so happy you said that. Basic human rights and condition. If, like, things that we often, think are just there, and yet it doesn't take very long. Step outside your door, step on, like, again, I feel so grateful and so privileged and so blessed to have traveled, around so many countries, because it also gave me a very different perception on what else exists, right? And what I may take for granted is not the truth for everybody. And what somebody else may take for granted is not the truth for me. And it's just like, but kind of widening those blinders more to kind of say, okay, this is what I think, but could it be that what I think is not necessarily the absolute truth, right? Even basic, huge, hardcore, in my mind, chiseled in the stone kind of 10 commandment type beliefs, they're just as open to, I could be wrong. If whenever I have stepped into something thinking I could be wrong, it could possibly be just the way I look at things. It's opened up worlds for me. It's what's kept me from worrying about, the right and or wrong of different types of religion, the rights, the wrong of race. Like, seriously, race. isn't there just one race, the human race? Okay, I'm so not going to go down that rabbit hole, but that's just literally, I'm like, dude, there is a glorious world waiting for all of us. How do we make it thrive? And oh my gosh, the power, this is why I chose business. The power of business to show up and affect the possibilities and opportunities, just holy, I don't know any other form of being, for myself anyways, and for frankly other business owners, for affecting change, for affecting awesome, amazing stuff through business. I don't know if any other entity that does that quite as powerfully. And let's see. Thank you. I have amazing coffee. You and we're going to just enjoy a cup of coffee. I've got so many, but it was so easy for me to just drop a tea bag in and run. And I needed something. And Few says, we cannot wait for government to hand out grants. We need to use our creativity to drive progress. Oh my gosh, yes. This is what really, it really actually confused me when this whole pandemic sort of became the reality around us last year. I saw business owners asking for and waiting for handouts, rather than figuring out what we are so good at doing, right? We literally are wired for it. We figure, I was going to say shit out, but we figure stuff out. We, oh man, when do we not deal with uncertainty? It was huge doses of uncertainty, granted, but it was still uncertainty, right? Mind you, I do understand and acknowledge that when there is so much pressure on us and we are worried about finances, we don't have access to that creativity. We need to come up with better ways of doing, being, and creating, right? So I get that. But short term, okay, fine, take some help, but not long term. And I saw business owners literally kind of just saying, going, okay, whatever grant I'm getting, I'm good with that. No, it will run out. It's not sustainable. However, if you take that and use that to create that space around you, and then step even more powerfully into that opportunity, that adversity always creates. Always. Like, no two ways about it. Every time there's adversity, there's opportunity. And I'm not talking about ick, yuck, and ew kind of opportunity. I'm talking about awesome opportunity that allows you to do things that you didn't consider before that. Doors that show up for you to open, to create value in a way you weren't before, right? And just ways of thinking and seeing, oh, what is the need of the time? What can I do? Who needs me right now to do something different? Like, adversity, absolutely, hands down, creates opportunity if you allow yourself to see it. And it blew me away that there were business owners who were sitting there going, okay, well, we're not getting enough, aid or grants or whatever. I'm like, flip that. Let's go make our opportunity right now. And thanks, Few. Okay, some things I get a little passionate about, can you tell? And MJ says, it is a process that one must understand. It is okay to shed the limiting beliefs and discover your raison d'etre. Your why does not matter, your past, your culture, etc. Absolutely. Absolutely. I know you guys will know. I know each one of you will know what I'm talking about. When you connect with whatever your reason for being, whatever you feel is your purpose, your calling, what else lights you up more? What else lets you bounce out and figure stuff out and make things happen and do amazing, whether it's creating something on your own or partnering with somebody else, collaborating with somebody else, and kind of saying, okay, you know what? I'm really, really, really good at this. This person's really, really, really good at this. What would happen if we come together, right? And just allow both of us to shine even more brightly than we do individually. It lights me up. And you guys are so amazing. Like, just your chat, just your comments, they kind of show me that there is so much potential for each of us to bring our own unique strengths into this economy, right? And for me, man, when I was I'm going to actually change the banner, because there was another one I wanted to share with you. And I talked about authentic capitalism. Oh, yes. Okay, so I totally don't want to forget about talking about this. I heard this or read this somewhere, and I had to go look it up, because I was thinking about what allows us to operate as business owners, thinking about profitability not as as the reason for why we do things, but as the means to an end for what we really want to see in the world more of, right? And how do we do that? So in doing that, the profitability becomes a necessity for us to achieve that end. And the better you do this, the better you can do that. And you do this by creating so much value that people are giving you value in return, just so they can get to whatever their important end to achieve is, right? And I'm like, okay, so how do business owners do this, right? And yes, I look at metrics, and I look at systems, I look at frameworks, I look at models, I look at gaps, I look at analysis, I look at a whole bunch of things. But at the end, really, the bottom line of all of that stuff really is connecting your head and your heart, so that you are operating as a business owner, or frankly, as a stakeholder within the business itself, right? Perhaps the employees, the team members, whatever, but you are operating from a place which aligns that head and the heart. And I read this or heard this, and it sort of, first it made me laugh, and then it made me marvel, right? Or maybe vice versa. I don't remember which came first. I just remember sitting there and actually having to think about it, because I'm like, the longest journey that people must take is the 18 inches between their heads and their hearts. Makes you think, right? Okay, share with me what you think about that, because it totally blew my mind. I had to sit there and think about it, and I don't want to be the only weird person who did that. So I want you guys to think about that and tell me your thoughts on it, right? What does that mean? What does that mean for a business to do that, to live that, to have as part of its mission that it is not irresponsible to be thinking about with your heart? In fact, that alignment of your head and your heart is what will allow you to be more profitable. Not because you're trying to manipulate people, not because you're doing it so you can make more money, but you're doing it because it's the right thing to do. It allows you to show up more authentically. It allows you to see opportunities better, and it allows you to shape the future with your present, right now, everyday decisions, right? Do you see how that kind of shifts that focus from the short-term profitability, the short-term share price that literally wiped out companies like Enron and even for Kmart and Kodak? Who would have thunk Kodak would go down, right? It's that flipping, chasing of that short-term share price that made them focus only on decisions that made no sense long term. Not only that, how many companies had to go and redo their financials because they were reporting them wrong and trying to reflect it so their share price did not suffer? Are you kidding me? How does that affect your reputation? How does that affect your brand? How does that then affect people's trust in you so they will buy your shares? Right? Seems so common sense to me now, but when you're thinking about it and your focus is that your only responsibility as a business is to your short-term share price and to the shareholders of the company. And I kind of put a pin on the shareholders bit because I was like, yeah, shareholders, right? Shareholders, stakeholders. Are the shareholders only the ones who bought your share on the open market? Are they? Because to me, shareholders are also anybody who has a stake in your company, right? So when you open up that whole understanding of what a stakeholder is, right? And maybe that's the difference between a shareholder and stakeholder, because I always think about it as a stakeholder. I may have bought the share of, I don't know, Amazon, right? Or Apple or whatever, right? But I may have bought the share of that company. But why did I buy it? What was my decision behind it? And am I only worried about whether they're chasing profits and not providing authentic, real, amazing, incredible value, improve, not just improving, but elevating the experience and lives of the people who are buying from them? Who am I buying from? Why am I buying it? What are they doing? And yes, I know there's all kinds of rabbit holes that it saddens me to know that even though I'm purchasing the shares of one company, it's hard to know what they're investing in, and they could be investing in things that are not aligned with what their mission and their purpose is, and it can get extremely complicated. But what I guess the point I'm trying to make is that even shareholder is not like this little thing in the box that you stuff in and that's all it is. And when you do, unfortunately, it makes you the company that does not survive. Who thought Sears, like seriously, Sears, companies that were so big and sort of like always their kinds of names, right? Gone. Because again, that responsibility of business to always be elevating, right? To always be thinking about ways of putting themselves, like making themselves obsolete. What they're doing currently is obsolete. Why? Not because they want to put themselves out of business, but because they're always innovating. They're always looking to see what else can we create. And the only way you can do that is when you pull in the stakeholders to your common mission. Okay, so totally on my soapbox. They did, but and so did a lot of these other companies. But the reason I do believe a big contributing factor was that they bought into that that thought that the only responsibility of companies is to their profitability and their short-term share price, right? Short-term focus on a long-term entity, how does it even jive? Consumers are absolutely shareholders. Yep. And Matt, you're absolutely right. Employees as well. And Vicky, I love this. Thank you. Totally agree. People that can feel your love want to do business with you. Yep. It's the reason why you're doing something. Subconsciously, we pick up on it just because we want somebody to give a care. If I am buying something from somebody, I want to know that they put care into it for whatever pain I'm trying to address or alleviate through that. So I don't think I missed any comments, but if I did, I apologize. I know we went on a little bit later today, but I love that you're here. And I've been kind of thinking about a few things, guys. Before we wrap up, I'll share this with you, okay? So Matt's been telling me like forever that I need to do the recharge sessions again. And I'm kind of thinking about a different twist on it, leading towards, the same kind of workshop type session, but maybe doing it as a challenge before, right? Because remember, I was originally going to do it as a challenge and then I didn't, just because I had no internet and I had to kind of change it. And then I wanted to give like over the top value. But anyway, so I think I'm going to do that. And I'm kind of thinking about like a name that fits it and kind of keeps it in the same spirit. I'd love to know if you guys have any thoughts about it, because I shared the story of the recharge sessions with you, so you know what the premise is. And really, my whole thing is about helping businesses align with their purpose, right? Shape them around that higher intrinsic purpose and allow them to step into a higher form of leadership, a higher form, like elevating really the way we do life and business, right? Charge up, inspire ourselves so all of our values are reflected through all levels, all roles in our organization. Every single person on our team becomes that star player, that whose only goal, whose main goal, whose primary goal is to help the company succeed, right? Like this little mini movement in itself. You guys have heard me talk about it. So that's the end goal. But this is where I'm like, okay, if you guys have any thoughts about what could be cool names, to go for the challenge, share that with me, because in the next, like, I'm already having someone do the pages and the copy and all that. But this is something that was on my mind, and I love you, so I wanted to get your thoughts on it, right? I'm like, I am surrounded by like the bestest people. Why would I not get your input on this? And the other thing is, I'm thinking of some cool things to be doing that may be of interest to you. And so starting next week, I think I'm going to start rolling some of those out and sharing them with you. And then I absolutely am depending on you to give me your authentic feedback. Let me know. Am I on the right track? Because this isn't just me operating in a vacuum. This is me with you guys. So I love you. I thank you. I'm so grateful that you're still here with me. And I'll see you guys soon. Thanks for being part of the Conscious Business Talks show. And next Thursday, 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. And I think with the time change, it's 10:30 Brisbane time. I think I've got that right. Have a great night. Cheers. And we'll see you soon.